All right, it's time to knock out the last of these 2019 college football team season preview and prediction videos. I sort of got away from these over the last week or so as the college football season has started, but I've got 3 teams I've got left to do from suggestions over on the UNCLELOU Patreon page. So I'm going to get these 3 teams knocked out all in this one video. Preview and prediction time for Army. Hold your applause to the end. Army, Central Florida, and the one you've all been waiting for, the University of West Florida. All right, good morning, and that's Uncle Lou here. Yep, it's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on LouTube today. Man, thanks for watching. I sure do appreciate it. If you're watching this video, you're a loyal Uncle Lou fan or the biggest college football fan on planet Earth. I'm going to do quick previews for the season for Army, UCF, and West Florida in this video. These aren't going to be as detailed as the other preview videos I did because it's Army, UCF, and the University of West Florida. But nevertheless, we're going to get them knocked out. Subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos year-round every single day. Thumbs up this video if you're excited to see what the University of West Florida Argonauts are going to do this year. All right, let's start with Army. Here we go. I'm going to put the schedule up on the screen. Army has been quietly, I think, one of the best group of 5 teams in America over the last 3 years. Everyone talks about Central Florida for obvious reasons. They've made 2 New Year's Six Bowls in a row, and they've clearly been the best group of 5 team over the last couple of years. But Army finished the season ranked last year, double-digit wins again. I mean, they've had double-digit wins 2 years in a row now, right? Lost to Oklahoma last year in Oklahoma in overtime. And that game was sketchy for Oklahoma for a large portion of that game. But 11 wins last year, beat Houston in their bowl game 70-14. Army did. Unreal. Now, they run one of these triple option offenses, okay? So when you see a score like Army versus Oklahoma and it goes to overtime, keep in mind, we do see this from time to time from triple option teams when they play a powerhouse team that's not used to playing against the option. I'm not making excuses for Oklahoma. Obviously, they have a terrible defense, but we do see this a lot, not just when Army plays some teams, but other teams too. It's hard for a team to prepare for the triple option in 1 week when they don't spend any other time during the year preparing for it. It just is. Army's quarterback, Hopkins, first Army quarterback in history to throw for 1,000 and run for 1,000 in the same season. He's back. Should be another big year for him running that triple option offense. And that's what people tend to think about, obviously, when they think of Army as a triple option. But Army had a legitimate defense last year. Listen to this. Where's this at? Top 10 in America. Points allowed and yards allowed. Listen, if you're top 10 in defense in those 2 categories, you won a lot of games. But regardless of whether your offense is that good or not, because you're limiting teams on the scoreboard, and that's going to equal some wins. Second in the nation running the ball last year, the triple option, obviously. That keeps the other team off the field. If you watched the Army-Oklahoma game last year, I mean, that's the prototypical example of what you see a lot of times when one of these highly ranked teams plays one of these triple option teams. Keep away. Army kept the ball. Oklahoma couldn't get on the field. When they did get on the field, Army's defense did a pretty good job of shutting them down for a large portion of that game. Anyway, 29 wins over the last 3 years for Army. So, yes, they are one of the best group of 5 teams. They got to be one of the best 5, I think. That's my honest opinion. Made 3 straight bowl games, won all 3. So going all the way back to the 2016 season, 8 wins, including a bowl win. 2017 season, 10 wins, including a bowl win. And last season, 11 wins, including a bowl win. 8, 10, 11. Folks, that's called an upward trajectory. Can they win 11 games again this year? Here's the schedule. It's been up on the screen. Obviously, they've got the tough one on the road at Michigan, right? Now, could this be an Oklahoma situation from last year where the game goes down to the wire and Army actually has a chance to win. No, I don't see that happening. Michigan's defense is infinitely better than Oklahoma's. I do think Army will give Michigan some trouble at times in this game, and it could very well be a pretty good game for some portion of that game. I do not see Army pulling off the miraculous upset at Michigan. This isn't going to be a 2007 App State type situation where they go into the big house and win. I can't see that happening. And let's be real, I'm high on Michigan again this year. You guys know that if you've been watching the channel. I can't be as high as I am on Michigan and then predict them to lose to Army at home. So I've got Army catching a loss in that game for sure. Later in the season, they play on the road at Hawaii. Hawaii is one of these teams that are the exact opposite of Army. Army's going to pound the ball on the ground, control the clock. Hawaii might throw the ball 60 times in this game. I probably think Army overall is a better team than Hawaii. They're definitely better. They're definitely better defensively. It is tough to travel all that way, though. And I don't think Army is infinitely better than Hawaii. Going out there, I'm going to predict Army catches another loss in that game there. That's 2 losses. I'm going to be honest here. I would not be surprised if Army won the remaining games on their schedule and finished at 10-2. That would not surprise me. That would mean they'd have a possibility to get to an 11th win with a bowl win and match last year. I think 9-3 is more likely for Army, though. I can't pinpoint exactly where that third loss might come because, like I said, I think Army will probably, they got a good chance of being favored in the rest of those games. But I do think they slip up somewhere. So I'm going to go with Army, 9-3 this season, losses on the road to Michigan and Hawaii, and throw a dart and pick one other loss. All right, UCF. Now, obviously, they've already played. They played a game yesterday, so nothing I can do about that. They dominated FAU or FA&M, whatever it was, 50-0, 60-0. It's absolute domination. Of course, what'd they do? What were they last year? 11-1, 12-1. They ended up winning or losing the bowl game. Undefeated regular season again. I think they had a game canceled in the regular season. So they were 11-0 in the regular season. Finished 11-1 with was it the Fiesta Bowl, I believe. They lost to LSU, right? Josh Heupel's in year 2. Takes over, of course, for Scott Frost, who's now in year 2 at Nebraska. McKenzie Milton, man, I loved watching McKenzie Milton play. I'm not really a fan of UCF. I think they took the national title thing a little bit too far in 2017, dragging that thing on March, April, flying banners over Alabama Stadium. It kind of turned me off from them. McKenzie Milton was one of the most exciting players in all of college football to watch, and the injury he had, I think it was the next to the last game or whatever it was last year, one of the most brutal and gruesome injuries you can see. He may never play football again. He's taking a medical red shirt this year. I hope he's able to recover and recuperate and maybe play again next year. It was just a terrible thing to see. I think he was a legitimate Heisman contender, a legitimate dual threat quarterback, a guy that really can run and throw at a high level. And you don't see very many of those. A lot of the dual threat quarterbacks can't throw the ball that well. McKenzie Milton was not that guy. He could throw, he could run. He's a do-it-all guy, leader of that team offensively. Hated to see him go down like that. He's out for this year. That means our buddy Brandon Wimbush is in, transfer from Notre Dame, quarterback up there. He was all right at Notre Dame, right? Obviously, he got benched in favor of Ian Book, and that seems to have worked out for Notre Dame as they managed to make the playoffs and get humiliated in the first round last year. What was Wimbush's record at Notre Dame? 13-3? Yeah, 13-3 at Notre Dame. Now, I don't think he's a true dual threat quarterback. I don't think he can throw the ball at an elite level. He can run around some, and he's pretty good at that. I don't think he's got the arm that McKenzie Milton had. I think it's a step down in quarterback for Central Florida. Not knocking Brandon Wimbush. I think he's a more than capable quarterback, but I don't think he's got an elite level arm, and I do think McKenzie Milton, healthy, is better than Brandon Wimbush. And let's be real, if it wasn't for the McKenzie Milton injury, they never would have brought Brandon Wimbush in. So it's no disrespect intended for Brandon Wimbush, but if you've been paying attention to college football, I think you'd have to agree McKenzie Milton would have been the better option, right? They get 3 starters back in a secondary that was really, really good last year, so it should be better this year. They go 2, 3, 4 deep at the running back position, guys that are all more than capable of putting up yards and scoring touchdowns. They've got all AAC wide receivers. The defensive line really is one of the only question marks on this team. They only return 1 player on the defensive line with a whole lot of game experience. But let's be real, a New Year's Six bowl is likely again this year for Central Florida. They have an inherent benefit over every other group of 5 team right now, and that is that they're viewed at a certain level, right? If UCF goes 11-1 or 12-0, that's going to be viewed as meaning more than if any other group of 5 team does the exact same. Why? Because UCF has been doing it now for 2, 3, 4 years in a row. So they've earned sort of that reputation of already being real good. If you look at the preseason rankings, of course, they're starting out real high for a group of 5 team. You don't see any other group of 5 teams sort of getting that benefit of the doubt because they haven't put together recently anyway a 2 or 3 year stretch like Central Florida has. So Central Florida is obviously the most likely group of 5 team to make a New Year's Six bowl, because even if you have 2 or 3 or 4 group of 5 teams that somehow manage to go 11-1, Central Florida is going to be the highest ranked of those teams because they've earned up that clout over the last couple of years. And I think they deserve it. They've been one of the best programs in America over the last couple of seasons. I don't see how anybody could really argue that. They do have, I think, 4 games on their schedule this year that could potentially trip them up. By no means do I expect them to lose all 4 of these games, but I would not be shocked if they lost 2 of these games. I think the most likely scenario is that they lose 1 of these games and go 11-1. Those 4 games are pretty obvious if you're looking at the schedule right now, but they host Stanford here coming up. I think that might be week 2, but it's early in the season. Well, it's on the screen. You can see it. I don't have it in front of me. That's a dangerous game. Stanford, I'm not as high on Stanford this year as I was last year, and I was high on them last year, and they let me down. This year, they're totally switching things up. KJ Costello, they're going to let him air the ball out. They're sort of getting away from the ground and pound type of offense that David Shaw's been running there over the last several years, and they're going to go to more of a passing offense there. Stanford's got some serious question marks this year. I think they're probably a 3 or 4 loss team at least, but they're a Power 5 team traveling to play a group of 5 team. It could be an embarrassing loss. I know Central Florida is good, but let's be real. It doesn't matter. If you lose to a group of 5 team, it's embarrassing. I think I picked Stanford to win this game when I did my Stanford preview. Obviously, this isn't really fair now because I've seen what UCF looks like, having watched some of that game last night. I know it was against a terrible team, but still, I don't care how good you are and how bad the team are that you play. It's hard to beat a team 60-0 or whatever it was. We'll see what Stanford looks like this weekend when they play. And I don't, but I think you have to at least admit, even if you're a UCF fan, that there's a possibility of a loss against Stanford. Will it happen? Probably not, but it could. A couple of difficult road games too, at Pitt and at Cincinnati. Cincinnati, of course, already has a win over a group of 5 team, having beat the disaster known as Chip Kelly and UCLA last night in a Thursday night game. It was a home game for Cincinnati, and Chip Kelly starts out yet again 0-1, losing to a group of 5 team. Cincinnati is a legitimate team and a team that I think can challenge Central Florida, especially with this game being in Cincinnati. So Central Florida's got to travel up there and play. Pitt, an ACC team, they won their division last year. I think it was Pitt that Central Florida was supposed to play last year, and the game got canceled, if I remember right. And that kind of sucks for UCF because it's hard for UCF to get these Power 5 teams to schedule home and home series with them. Obviously, Stanford has done it, playing at UCF coming up here in a couple of weeks. But they got Pitt to do it. They scheduled a home and home with Pitt. Pitt was supposed to play there last year, and I think that was the game that ended up getting canceled. So that sort of hurts UCF because when it comes down to the end of the year and they're sort of wanting to get into a New Year's Six or even maybe argue that they should be a playoff team, they need to have wins over Power 5 teams that they can point to. And they missed out on a chance at that last year with that Pitt game being canceled. They get another chance this year on the road. Again, UCF will probably be favored in both of those games, but just like the Stanford game, I think you have to at least accept the idea that it's possible Central Florida could lose either of those 2 games on the road at Pitt or at Cincinnati, and the home game to Stanford. The fourth game that would that would sort of have me a little bit worried if I was a UCF fan would be the Houston game. Dana Holgorsen comes in there, not real sure how that offense is going to look year 1 under him. They lose a lot of talent on defense. Of course, obviously they lose Ed Oliver, but they lose some other players too, some linebackers. They didn't get a whole lot of attention last year because Ed Oliver got all the hype and all the attention, but they've got some pieces to replace on defense. And Holgorsen wasn't necessarily known as a guy who was putting a good defense on the field in his time at West Virginia. So we'll see what he's able to do at Houston. But I do think Houston is a pretty good group of 5 team. We'll find out more about them this weekend when they play Oklahoma. But I think those 4 games at least hold a slight possibility for Central Florida to slip up in 1, maybe even 2 of those. Like I said, I don't see any way Central Florida would lose 3 games this year. So can Central Florida go 12-0? Absolutely. They may be favored in every one of these games. Could they go 10-2? I think that's possible. Is it more? Which is more likely, 12-0 or 10-2? I think 12-0 might be more likely than 10-2. But what I think is going to happen is they're going to go 11-1. I do think they lose one of these 4 games. If you nail me down right now and make me pick one, it's going to be on the road at Cincinnati. I think they actually beat these 2 Power 5 teams, Stanford and Pitt, and lose on the road at Cincinnati. I don't know. I could be wrong about Stanford. Stanford got hot at the end of the season last year when they changed their offense up and let KJ Costello start throwing it around. I don't know how smart that's going to be on the road at UCF with those 3 returning defensive backs they have. We'll find out. But in any case, I'm going to say UCF goes 11-1. Hard to find that which loss, where that one loss might be, but I think it would definitely come to one of these 4 teams I mentioned. All right, get your popcorn, sit down, get comfortable, prop your feet up. Here it comes. This is the one that people have been waiting since June for this preview. The University of West Florida Argonauts. Let's go. 6-5 last year. Pretty disappointing if you consider the season they had the year before, right? In 2017, they went 11-4 and actually advanced all the way to the championship game. They have a true playoff here in these Division II, in the Division II ranks or whatever. But so 11-4, they ended up losing the national championship game. The year before that, 2016, they were 5-6, but that was their first year actually playing a full schedule. The year before that, they formed the football team, but all they did was play each other 5 times. It's kind of weird. They had like 5 inter-squad games, they called it, I think, during the football season. But basically, it was like, if you went to those games, it was basically like going to 5 spring games, in a row is what they did. So only been around for a few years, 5-6. The big year in 17, 11-4, and then regressed last year back to 7-5. I mentioned losing in the Natty game in 2017. Who'd they lose to, you ask? Great question. They actually lost. This is unbelievable. I had to look this up twice. They actually lost in the Division II national title game to none other than Texas A&M. Unbelievable. Aggies, what are you doing? No one knows. Oh, wait. No. Whoa. Wait. Texas A&M Commerce. My fault. I'm sorry. That's not the SEC team, Texas A&M. It constantly underwhelms, disappoints, and craps to bed late in the season every single year. Not that Texas A&M. Texas A&M Commerce. If you'd have played the other Texas A&M, you probably would have won. They have a hard time winning games at the end of the year. Don't they play Georgia this year? Yeah, they do. When do they play them? End of the year. Oh, yeah, that's right. We'll see you in Athens, though, Aggies. Make sure you bring those male cheerleaders and all that stupid-ass yell practice that you do, and also in 2. Addition all that as well. Who'd you lose to last year when you went 6-5? Well, this is interesting. You lost to the number 10 team, the number 4 team, and the number 7 team. You beat the number 22 team. That was your best win. So you were somewhere between the 10th and 22nd best team in Division II last year, but you finished 6-5. Disappointing compared to the year before. You lost to something called Midwestern State. They were ranked 10th. And then you lost to the number 4 and the number 7 team. Well, guess who that was? Well, number 4 was none other than West Georgia. That's right. And number 7 was none other than Valdosta State. So here we have the University of West Florida. Yet another team from the state of Florida that can't beat a team from Georgia. These are the Gators of Division II. congratulations. Another Florida team that can't beat Georgia teams. 0-2 last year against teams from Georgia for West Florida. Miracle! Amazing. I don't know. How'd you get to the playoffs the year before? I don't know, but you somehow managed to do it. Bad news when you look at this year's schedule, though. Guess who's on it? West Georgia and Valdosta State. Well, that's 2 automatic L's right there. Listen, nobody from the state of Florida is competing with a team from Georgia right now. It's just not happening. I think you're actually going to lose 3 games this year. I'm going to say you split the difference. You had a really good year in 17, finishing 11-4 after losing in the Natty game. Stepped back last year, going 6-5, didn't even make the playoffs. I'm going to say you split the difference this year. You end the regular season with 3 losses, probably good enough to make the playoffs. We'll see. My guess, knocked out in the second round. Yeah, and you better hope you don't end, well, unless you have to play a Georgia team in the first round, in which case you get knocked out early. Yeah, start your Christmas break earlier than you wanted to. Anyway, that's it for the preview and prediction videos for 2019. I don't know. I think this is close to 45 of these I've done now. So I did 37 last year. My goal was to break that number this year. We got to 45. That means in 2020, I'm going to probably have to shoot for 50 team preview and prediction videos. Thank you guys for all the support on these preview and prediction videos. It takes me a whole lot of time to do even one of these videos, regardless of what you might think. I do look up a lot of information about these teams before I make these videos. People are always quick to jump in the comment section and you know, oh, you should have done some research. You didn't even say anything about our backup defensive tackle who was the number 19 recruit from the state of Texas in the 2017 class before going JUCO for 1 year because of grades. And now we got him. No, so yeah, I don't mention all that. Videos would be 2 hours long if I had to. I mean, it's not a roster preview. I'm not going to read the roster. But anyway, I do put a lot of time into these videos. So I'm glad that you guys have enjoyed them and have really supported these videos. The views have been great. The thumbs up. I mean, I really appreciate that you guys have taken the time to watch these videos after I have taken the time, effort, and energy to make them. But that's going to do it for the 2019 college football team preview and prediction videos. We're into the season now. So again, I'll pop the season schedule up on the screen again. I'm trying to put it up every couple of videos or whatever to make sure everybody gets a chance to see it. But this will show you which videos are coming out on which days for the rest. This is just how it goes during the season on here. So it won't change. I'll have another video coming up later this afternoon too. My locks of the week for week 1 in college football 2019. You already know some of them if you watched the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday videos this week where I previewed the SEC games on Tuesday, the top 25 games on Wednesday, and I previewed the other games of interest to me on Thursday. So you already know 1 or 2 of my locks of the week if you paid attention to those videos. But I'll make a short video later this afternoon, 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll give you 3 or 4 games coming up this weekend that I like the most. And we'll call those Lou's Locks of the Week. Have a good morning.